They ruled by junk, mistakes, fears, lies, and psychic filth, psychically trashing their victims, who oftentimes they got on their knees to obey. I just downloaded this little 200-page book, Archons, Hidden Rulers Through the Ages, I think that's what it's called. Why are seemingly good people so retarded around the truth? Check my other videos. I couldn't help but see the obvious synthesis and foundation of our entire spiritually and socially pathetic and inverted Abrahamic false self-religion, structural unintegrity, illusions, fabrications, and millions of years of dogma and false guilt-based trauma bonds, Stockholm Syndrome, and attachment to enslaving others and our own soul fragments, all the way from the horrible abuse to children to simply being addicted to the divine plants. Often constantly yoked to the deceivers, one way or the other, from one subtlety to an extreme embarrassment. It was not enough that they had hacked into our DNA. Gave us their minds, as Castaneda said. And who needs us to be junked? Who programmed us to be human cattle, batteries, and slaves for their very spiritually retarded, morally imbecilic takeover plans? No. They also had to systematically, through these false self-religions, governments, endless wars, dogma, and cults, from the ancient brotherhood of the snakes to the scientism death cult, junk our concepts of ourselves. That's right, you're born in the wrong body. That's right. Whatever nature made is wrong. We have to reject it. We have to reject whatever concepts we have of ourselves from our natural blueprint and replace it with battery program, right? So through false shame and guilt, you did it. Right. You're a sinner. It's your fault. It's all your fault. Everything that happened to you, all those thoughts are your thoughts. You did it to yourself. You programmed yourself. No, I'll never tell you that. I'm making fun right there. I was imitating the deceiver, the great deceiver. No. He put all these etheric and multidimensional and even physical implants in you in all kinds of ways. Not just from these ones that these healers claim to be able to remove, and things like my mercury fillings, things like such as all the habits that you or I or anyone does that might inflict harm on ourselves, our physical health, that we think we have to do. I've had a strong chips addiction, since forever, but that's, when they started making it with avocado, or better yet, when it was coconut oil, it didn't seem to harm me as much. But the main thing is that one way or the other that I junk my concept, that I think of myself as junky. That's how they get in. That's how the archons will get into my thoughts. If I think I'm junky, it's all over from that point. So through false shame and guilt, that's how they built the whole thing up. Guilt trips that don't belong to you, and convince us, and through conveniences, convince us of the pathetically retarded concept that 96% of our DNA is only inaccessible junk we cannot use. That's been disproven so vastly in so many different ways. We don't know what it's there for. Oh yeah, sure. Earth humans were actually originally really divine, good fragments or rays of the Christ Sophia in action, the actual flesh suits inhabited by the magi, the divinity, the respectful one. But now, we can't allow that idea to be spread around here. We don't, we got to pretend like all that stuff that the SDC doesn't understand is junk, of course, so junk DNA, just like the hell realm, the concept of the hell realm loose form itself, just like our geoengineered skies, is not real. It's just the Matrix, the second version, the false reality version, the Earth and humans. Okay, again, before the Anunnaki or any of these other controller groups got here, that our species, my opinion, my guess, my psychic impression is that before Los Angeles over here did such a brilliant job of broadcasting their inversions everywhere, we had shamans at almost every corner of the world to maintain the idea that the Mexicans would say to their own people, La Familia, treat everyone as family. Well, that's how people were everywhere. The Celtics, the Celtics predated the Anunnaki by a long time, so it wasn't just Aboriginals and dark skinned, but also some of the Nordic tribes predate that. So, and they were all oneness conscious. They didn't have, maybe they fought to protect for survival, just for protection, but I seriously doubt. I mean, maybe besides, like I say, tending chickens and dairy animals, because they knew that these Anunnaki, or even before that, whatever, eating fish or whatever they needed to survive. I don't know. Perhaps they were all vegans back then, for all I know. Maybe they were. Now look at how badly the dark side genetic tinkerers technically fouled us up genetically. If you do a little research, you'll find that the human genome has a ridiculous amount of flaws in it, and my interpretation is that they program these in because they want us as a slave race, you see. So they technically fouled us up. We have chromosomes fused. I forgot which ones it is. You can look it up. There's human chromosomes that got fused together, and I mean, that's just insane, and hundreds of genetic defects in the genome, as I say. And we, just look it up. We think psychics are extremely rare or don't exist at all. We are guilt-driven holy rollers, reverence-hating atheists, or Orthodox Jewish who think we are all human farm animals that must be kept in psychological pens like mortgages and now stable coins, or in some other form, like just, we'll keep them as pets if they're respectful. Like, I always think about that song. I think that song was really, really appropriate when you think about how do your Anunnaki overlords, your father gods, feel about you if you never revolt and you're not violent and you refuse violence. We make great pets, we make great pets, we make great pets. They think of us as pets. Check out my morality in the egregore video, inspired by Chuck Swindoll's Genius. Probably a live video about that. Check out my egregore talk for more details. Historical events were designed to extract loose and take us down, like 9/11. When you think about the amount of energy, I mean, people died, but like, you think about the emotional energy that frequencies that cause. You think about the amount of trauma. I myself, I was working as a tile mechanics helper at a job on the naval base, and remember I was hitting a homemade bong, watching it at my house on network news. This was, 24 years ago. I wasn't too far into. I gotten into the, David Icke a little bit and all that, but just I was shocked when they kept playing it over and over again. The plane hitting the building, and I remember that was the first time I actually thought maybe I am insane or schizophrenic. And the next day I got, they called off the job for that day, and then the next day I tried to drive to work, and the road was blocked because they were checking people so hard at the Air Force base. And I called my boss and he said, don't worry about it. So I was like, whew. It was, intense, but. So, the demiurgos Yaudabaoth did an exceptional job with all of this for a being with no heart or soul. I mean, loser 4. I mean, imagine how the craftsmen of the Matrix, imagine how the headless god Mem and all of their perverted accomplices actually convinced the real, actual Christ within humans, the divine spark it could never understand or relate to, that this divine being is actually a spirit of junk. I mean, imagine the concerted, the orchestration, the organizational efforts the dark side has to achieve these goals is vast. As much as they're anti-creative and anti-art, anti-respect, they can organize amazingly well. You are a sinner means you are a mistake. Because the word sin was taken from archery terms. Sin was a term from archery meaning you missed the mark. Like, in other words, you're way off the bullseye. But it was, gradually had the forces of the archons pulling it into what it became. So, yeah, well, worshiping your blood-drinking, jealous slave master junior god is a vast mistake, and all of them were never near the bullseye of Christ's self-sovereignty of the big truth. And, from the Gnostic perspective, that was purposefully hidden, you see? Corrupted or rotted away, even to this era with my personal edition. Because who controls the numbers? Corrupted or rotten away from within the incessant beaming broadcasts of Radio 666 in our minds. Make this mistake. Suck this blood. Kill that person. Kill yourself. Having the imposter gods in our minds wasn't enough. They had to seal but having these fake thoughts, trying to beam these fake thoughts into people's minds wasn't enough. No. They had to, the ability that they had the technology to actually beam that, and I don't know, everyone or however many people's minds it is that they do that to, that wasn't enough. They had to seal the deal by getting us to identify as sinners. Hateful, violent dogma, Chronos style eating of our own, eating our own children psychologically or even physically for those in the adrenochrome or Chronos cults, extraction biz. All human life had to be full of guilt, fear, slavery, and later voluntary slave contracts. I mean, you can see where the emphasis is here. I mean, when David Icke self-published a book called Human Race, Get Off Your Knees, he had to be, banned because it's not okay to say that, Mistakes, and more recently infected with the fully incredibly stupid idea of junk DNA, that our DNA is mostly junk. Actually, the thoughts, actions, concepts, and egregoric violence of the archons is the real junk. When you think about it, they convinced you of all these junky ideas, and told you, you are this junk. Your DNA is junk. You are a sinner. You are a piece of junk. You are trash. And then they feed you. Then they I'm over 96% sure that these same Zeta Gray or whatever they are, archontic forces, they invented GMO foods to make us in their image, in the image of God. They brought along the extra sugar cane, the GMO foods, and then hydrogenated oils. Hydrogenated oils to make us in the image of the alien, anti-life imposter God, you see? But all these things became exposed to some level and didn't kill as many people or control as many people as they like. But it controlled many people for a very long time. To this day, it controls many people, so as well as their big farm, all of it. So it's just, in creating a control mechanism for a farm, a human energy extraction mechanism, you see, they succeeded very well. You see, so, but the way they did that is by convincing us that we are junk, psychologically speaking, junk. Imagine your body mind is a huge sailboat and you steer it. Religion and governments, rabbis, priests, ministers, clergy, and kings have been the workers for the false self-gods who insisted on loading our psyches and bodies with their filthy junk, like dogma, lies, coercion through fear, making us run wars or get on our knees and do, feel through guilt, tortures, and all the other things they did, and threats of torture, and, whether they actually tortured people or threatened it, all that. You see, because, for some, that's all it took. Chuck Swindoll Jr. says, believing in the SDC, Bible thumpers stay stuck in 3D ego materialism, because they're stuck and they're worried about their soul surviving after death. Are they going to make it forever? And they have to, please this God that seems like will never be pleased because he keeps needing more and more. And so it's a materialistic God when you think about it. The demiurge, Yaldabaoth. A demiurge he's only a materialist, of course. So you are going to burn in hell forever if you don't let me junk your mind, beliefs, and actions. If you don't let me control your mind, beliefs, and actions, you're going to burn in hell forever. Now, does that sound like a being that has respect for you? If you won't be a box slave, if you don't believe, I'll junk you in burning flames forever. Yet, of course, the moment you believe this, you have already had your beautiful flesh sailboat turned into a junker barge. You see? And if you have to delete numbers of views on this video, or you have to make a living, you've already junked your soul by doing that. The believer in Western religions and governments, body mind, has been rendered junk by the trashy anti-life beings who are going to terrify us into doing this all over again after death, pretending to be the gods, pretending to be your loved ones. Ever tried to explain normal psychic powers to a staunch, obedient believer of the SDC? They're going to laugh at you. They're going to act like you're an idiot. They're going to be like, oh, well, everybody knows there's no such thing as psychic, and that's all a bunch of woo-woo, hooey, doo-doo, or whatever they call it. Because they'll never admit to the truth. Because it does not fit into the 3D world of the physically observable, their little weird little religion, little obedient 3D religion. Yet we know the visible spectrum is only a tiny portion of the light spectrum, and we know the SDC often has broke the scientific method and not even followed it in their horrible inverted mannerism, machinations of mind control. So we have to say that they broke the rules of their own supposed religion. by not obeying the scientific method. So that the light we see is only the tiniest portion of the light spectrum. Some animals can see other portions of it, see? So learn to see the sick religions and governments as what they really are metaphorically. Now, sinking ships, a tiny spectrum of light, getting mowed down by the iceberg of inversions they teach and believe. The more they let the luciferic, the inverted into their minds, the more they try to hide this instead of letting it flow. Sinners have to be submerged mostly in ice. You see, as the dark controllers. So this is what they do. You're stuck in slavery and you're a sinner. And you're in slavery and it's your fault. This is the normal human condition right now. So unless people think past, or are able to question the sick, pathological, normal human condition. As the dark controllers have freezed their souls in the frozen emotions of soul-sucking predatorial E.T. junior gods, which is all they know. What's it like to be like a black hole narcissist? Just look at how receptive the world is to my divine gifts, my 555 videos I gave the world, and look how receptive they were. Oh, yes. A few people were. Not at all. No. That's what these certain beings want me to think. You are your mistakes. I am MRSA. I am my cancer. I am all alone. See, if they can't hook you with religious BS, it's to get you to identify with your problems and self-isolate. What's the easiest way to get people to not cause crimes and to control them is to get them to be their own cop. All of these, Mercury and Capricorn retrograde in my birth chart. All of these concepts have led to massive alienation, loneliness, and loss of community. Unless you are willing to be dragged by a narcissist leader. I am not my problems. Okay? I'm working on healing. What does it say about these beings that they must convince us that we're... What does it say about whom or whatever, if it's archons or whomever these beings are, that they insist that we have to be mostly junk? What does it say about them? Does a narcissist ever admit that they behave like a scumbag and were acting wrong? Ever? Do they ever admit that they were not a god? I'll admit I've acted really stupid a lot of times. It took that to even begin to awaken, and you have to admit it even. I am not a scumbag double agent algorithm that only shares my long talks with a tiny portion of my audience. But, I might have to work through that. Or maybe I'll get lucky. One of those 3 NSA or CIA alphabet agents that loves me is working there. Oh, that would be so nice. How often does that happen? Well, once in a while. You were not born a sinner. You were born in a sinful matrix, programming us all to stay small, guilty, unaware, and unevolved. A little 3D flesh suit. Not even capable of creativity at all, or even contemplation. And I can eat anything I want. Any chemicals. I can put anything I want in my body. Because it's okay, because I don't have any respect. Because we are so sinful, we have to remain slaves forever. Because we are so gullible and ignorant, we have no psychic powers at all, only junk DNA. Aren't we smart? Because God the Faker, the violation master Yaldabaoth, is there in the sky, terrifying us all into obedience like the good God that he is. All divinity is up in heaven, not here. There's none of it here. The earth is just something we got to piss on and, dump our chemicals on. And none of it is here. This is just, thus the earth and our human bodies, we can just trash and junk the earth and our bodies because they're just trash. They're not divine. Nah, they're just trash. The real solar creator, Sol Helios, freely gives us living light essence to grow and heal. And so, I'm reminded that before the Matrix ever got here, before the Anunnaki deceivers and their sick filth dumping of nasty junk on the whole planet, the whole whatever it is, when you consider the geoengineering plan, before all of this forcing of experiments and all this stuff, before all this ever occurred, this planet and these bodies they are divinities. They are junked divinities, as I've said in other videos, So the real solar creator gave us free will. And the real solar creator, Sol Helios, freely gives us living light, essence, to grow and heal. So the junky gods have to block it off often. They have to block it out often. Maybe the sexual teachings of the tantrics were far healthier for us. They did not just lead to reproduction. Maybe the ancient Gnostics were wrong about physical sexual love being sinful or wrong, but perhaps they were correct in saying reproduction itself is wrong, of course. Unless you do it in a situation where you're not going to harm this person somehow. I don't know. Of course, as I once told Colette, I don't think it's possible, but it might be possible. Anything's possible, That's an old belief I had since I was a kid, and I can't disprove it because as I once told Colette about bringing in more souls here and now, I don't want to reproduce California. Yeah. So I feel like it would be easy to be influenced to do it in other locations when I made that comment, but now I think it'd be hard to get me to do it almost anywhere. But Trump served all that junk food to people to let us know whose side of this he's on. Donald Trump and his followers have no real right to lock up the gypsies. Sure, these truths can be extremely challenging, confusing, scary, and disorienting, but what happens if you simply accept their filthy ideas as reality? Well, more warfare, folks, forever. Ain't that what it's always been about with these beings? Ain't that what it's always been about with them? You will literally be in some type of hell nearly forever either way. As long as you are having to deal with this shit. Christian, Muslim, Jew, pagan, Illuminati, false scientist, or the other popular bullshit, whatever. Face it and wake up. These cults, these inverted or sick or pathological or old-fashioned ideas of control are not the future. These are from the age of Aries and Pisces, not the age of Aquarius. Okay. The masterful imposters have junked our minds and laid our bodies with junk food and used their trashy ideas to rule and lord over us. They're junker ships. But the era of control with lies is over.